Built My E-commerce Career, a web series where we dive into some of the biggest names in e-commerce and how they built their careers. My name is Dimity Edwards. I am the account manager at Hunt & Co, specializing in digital marketing and e-commerce. For those that don't know, Hunt & Co is a boutique recruitment agency based here in Brisbane, Australia. As a recruiter, I get the opportunity to speak to some of the best e-commerce and startup companies around Australia. And through this process, I get to speak to candidates who are looking to build a career in e-commerce. However, they often don't know where to start and what they need to acquire in order to do that. So if you're seeking a gold rush, look no further than the growth of e-commerce, driven by digital transformation, accelerated by economic shifts and the coronavirus. E-commerce sales have continued to rise for almost in every single category. This has created billions of dollars in revenue for companies and has created thousands of job opportunities. So let's hear from some of the best in the industry. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Emilio Murphy, the advertising manager from HiSmile. So Emilio, thank you so much for being on the web series today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, are you excited, nervous? We're both just chatting offline that I've not done this in a really long time.
No, I think, yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be cool. I'd be really interested to see who else comes on this series and, what kind of advice they're able to, pass on to people who are looking to get into the industry.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first of all, introduce yourself. Tell us about how you've got to where you are today.
Of course. Well, my name's Emilio, as you said. I'm the advertising manager here at HiSmile. If you don't know who HiSmile is, I guess we're a teeth whitening / oral care brand. We've been around for a few years now. But I think we sit in a really interesting space that we're very much kind of advertising first. And I guess we've gained a little bit of a cult following for the way we kind of go about our paid ads. So it's really interesting to kind of be the person in the engine room doing that day to day. But yeah, look, I think my role kind of sits between that paid advertising role and the strategic creative management role as well, where I work really closely with the creative team to really ensure that the creative that is being pushed out, resonates with our potential customers.
Everyone is now thinking, oh my God, this is the guy that spams me. Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Well, we'll dive into some stats and figures in the future or down the line of this. But first of all, how did you get into e-commerce, and did you think that you would be one day the advertising manager for HiSmile?
Honestly, no, I did not think I would be, but I've always had like a really, passion for advertising, and I've really enjoyed advertising ever since as long as I can remember. So I think it was just a natural progression that, I started as, I guess, an all-rounder marketer. My first job out of uni was just for a really small kind of business, like a local remedial / sports massage clinic. And then from there, I kind of moved, to different jobs and slowly worked my way through my experience. After that, I moved towards the group that owns Harajuku Gyoza. I worked with them for a little bit. And then from there, I moved on to a consultancy role. And that was way more hands-off. I was there for a little while, but I really wanted to kind of be hands-on again and really within a business.
Yeah.
And that's when HiSmile reached out to me and offered me, a pretty junior role in the advertising coordinator, which was a really basic, really, junior role, but I thought I had a really good opportunity getting into, this business at that level and working my way through. And 3 years later, here I am.
Nice. Well, often I do actually speak to a lot of candidates that assume that, I'm past that in my career, or that, I'm looking for a more senior role, or I want to do strategy. I guess, how do you speak to get in, learn the ropes, get the nuts and bolts going? Because at the end of the day, the best marketers, or the ones that I have experienced speaking to, often the ones that are still on the tools every single day.
Yeah, I think what's really important is I think you need to take a step back and really understand not only what your job is, but what your kind of role within the business is, I guess, from a bird's eye view. I think the way I look at it is I like to approach a lot of my things from a creative approach, creative first, whether it be ads or, content. And I think a lot of traditional digital marketers approach it from a very strategic and analytical focus first. So I think if you're able to kind of take a step back and do something as simple as taking a camera out, going out shooting with your friends and getting some really cool photos, you get a really good understanding of what works from a creative perspective. And I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give to someone really looking to kind of take that next step in their e-commerce career.
Yeah, is like just to try different bits and pieces. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think, really developing that creative eye is really important. And I think you could be the most analytical, most strategic person in the world, but if you don't really understand how creative works, I think you will really struggle in an e-commerce career.
Yeah. And in e-commerce, obviously you've chosen the vertical of paid ads, right? Your bread and butter is social media ads. Could you dive deeper into what a day-to-day looks like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a day-to-day is really interesting in the fact that it never really ends at the end of the day. It's always just constantly ticking over, right? But I think for me, my most important thing when I get in the morning is obviously check the last night's performance and understand, since HiSmile's, selling to all different parts of the globe, some parts of the globe are still awake, some parts of the globe are asleep. So it's really important for me to understand what performed well overnight or what has the opportunity to perform today. So I guess I'll make some basic account optimizations on that. And then I'll meet up with the creative team and, run through that performance as well. I like to be as transparent as possible with the creative team. A lot of e-commerce businesses generally have that disconnect between the paid ads and the creative team, whether it's just creative requests that's constantly going back and forth. I think if the creative team has that level of understanding of what's performing well, they're able to bring ideas to the table that you may not necessarily have thought at previously. So I like to have those meetings.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the secret sauce to HiSmile, FYI, guys.
100%.
Get in early. Yeah. Sorry, continue. What does the rest of your day look like?
And honestly, it's just about having those conversations throughout the day, really taking on those ideas and keeping an eye out on, seeing what's working, seeing what's not working. There might be another, brand from a different vertical that has a really interesting, eye-catching piece of creative. And I'm not saying going out and copying that ad, but it could be something as simple as maybe it has one little element in there that you think could be a really good hook for an ad, and then understanding why that is, and then using that theory to build another piece of content.
Yeah, awesome. And we're talking about off air, I guess, that being in the paid ad space really has that expectation that you're kind of on all the time, on weekends, late nights. I don't want to scare anyone away from a paid advertising career, because I think it is a really, really funky, cool, fresh space, and it is so needed. But what is that real expectation? I don't want, what's the good and the bad that comes with being a advertising manager or a paid ad specialist?
Yeah, well, I mean, realistically, I think the good that comes with it is if you're able to kind of get the hang of it and really understand what needs to be done, and you understand, I guess, the cadence of the business and when things perform and when things don't, you're able to kind of set up safe points in your day or your week. So you don't necessarily have to be on all the time. I guess you just have to be on at the most strategically impactful times of the day.
Yeah.
For example, I know on the weekend, no one really likes to work on the weekend, but it's hard not to when, the accounts are running 24/7. So for instance, you might understand that, the UK, for example, might be the best market for the business that you work for. So maybe checking the accounts first thing on the morning on a Saturday really quickly to understand if there has been, everything's gone to hell the night before, you're still able to kind of make adjustments. Yeah. But if it's going well, chances are you're probably going to have a good day ahead, so you can be a little bit more hands-off. So it's about, I guess, understanding how the business operates and understanding who the customers are. And from there, you can kind of set your life up in a way that you're still able to have that free time, because it is important, to really look after yourself and look after that mental health. But it's obviously really important to understand, when can you do that?
Yeah. And I guess with that as well, like the harder you work and operate and the results that you're able to produce, HiSmile will receive that back. And most companies, I guess, would allow you to kind of take the afternoon off on a Tuesday because they know that no accounts need to be done there. Is that kind of how you see it play out in your own life?
Yeah, I think, the team that I work with, the digital manager, the GM, we all have a really kind of transparent relationship. I think, if I went to the digital manager and said, hey man, I really need to go a couple of things this afternoon, I've got a couple of appointments, he's more than happy to kind of keep an eye on the accounts for me. And I think once that level of trust has been built, and you all know that you're capable of looking after one another, I think that's kind of a really good spot to be in.
Yeah, I love that. I want to dive into a little bit of maybe the best advice you were given, because obviously you're quite at a really fun part in your career where you're could potentially go anywhere in very different verticals. But what has been really the best advice you've received when it comes to your career and how to build a really amazing career within e-commerce?
I think a couple of pieces of advice that I've probably received over the years is, I guess, don't take things too seriously for one. I think at the end of the day, if things go bad, well, they go bad, and there's not much you can really do about it in the end. But I think seriously, talk to everybody. I'm not necessarily the most social person, but everybody in the business is there for a reason. Like they've been hired because they have a particular set of skills. And I think if you're able to kind of talk to everybody or network externally, you should also be networking internally. But on top of that, I think it's really important to, I guess, be happy in the mud. And when I say that, I think it's like you've really got to understand and really relish the mundane, but always kind of be pushing for more. Something I really learned really early on from an old boss of mine was saying that when I was leaving that particular business, one of the complaints I had in the exit interview was saying, oh, I just didn't experience super rapid growth, or I didn't experience this or that. And he kind of said, well, look, it's important that you understand the really boring and mundane roles, because the more you grow in your career, the people who kind of just gloss over that don't make good leaders. If you're able to understand how long it takes to do the really boring, I guess, data entry or the really boring kind of campaign setups, then you're able to delegate those things more effectively. And I think if you have done that in the past, you almost have a badge of honor to say, hey, I've been there, I understand what it is. And the people doing those roles, I think, have a high level of respect for you. And I think that just lends to yourself to become a better leader.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said, don't be afraid to be in the weeds, because I think that especially when you're early on in your career, you can often feel like, I just want to be the CEO of a company, like get me there, I'm worthy 100%. Of it. And yes, you are so worthy of it. But it might look different for you. I know that I went to an event one day and they did share that like collect experiences along the way. To be a CEO, you really having to have that deep knowledge in lots of different areas that are collectively going to build your career out.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like important to understand that everybody's on a different path. And I think don't compare your career to someone else's, because it doesn't work like that. Not everybody's going to become a CMO in 3 years. Someone might just be in the right place at the right time. And honestly, I'd be apprehensive as to know if that person is really ready for that role yet. But if, hey, all credit to them, if they stick in and, dig their heels in and really learn on the job, then that's them. But, I'd almost be happy slowly working towards that, because I know once I get there, I'm fully capable of that role.
Yeah, you've earned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I guess because we are talking about paid advertising within e-commerce, is there any resources that you're like, if you want to build a career within this vertical, these are what you need to have achieved or done, or just get under your toolbox?
Yeah, look, I really think it's something that I necessarily didn't find that I went to uni and got a marketing degree and whatnot, but I feel like I didn't really have that full level of exposure to the granular side of like paid ads. And I think what's really important is, I think it's important that someone, if you're really interested in paid advertising, just get into it and just start playing with tools and start getting into like Facebook ads. And people have asked me, oh, like, where did you learn that? Or how did you get to do that? I said, honestly, it was just me learning on the job and figuring out. It could honestly be as simple as, oh, your sister has got a small business. Hey, can I run ads for you for free? And I just want to spend like $10 or $20 a day. And it's somewhere to start, and you understand the impact of your changes, or you understand the impact of the things that you're setting live, and kind of get a feeling of that, if I do this, then this is going to happen.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. That is the best advice I give to all of the paid specialists or people that want to get into this vertical. The advice is like, just go try things. Did you have to collect a Facebook blueprint along the way, Google Analytics certificates? Like, do those things really matter at the end of the day?
I think it obviously depends on the business. I think for HiSmile in particular, HiSmile really hires for people that, really want to get involved, and they really hire for ultimately, I guess, personality and adaptability. When I started working at HiSmile, and it's weird to say this, but looking back on it, I wasn't that good at advertising, like paid ads or anything like that. And I mean, I learned most of it on the job. Obviously, there's businesses where, they're set up in a structure that it's a little bit more traditional and they require you to have that, I guess, proof that you're able to do it. But I think the best thing you can do is just get into it and just really know the platform back to front. So when it does come to the point where you have to, manage a campaign for a business, you don't have any doubts that you're able to do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we were speaking a little bit about a sandbox for Facebook ads. Where did this idea come from? I know from me, I've worked on Salesforce tools before, and Sandbox is really cool within Salesforce. Yeah, how did you get this idea of a Facebook sandbox, and how can I invest in it?
God. Like, if only there was a case. And like, I would love because I know Facebook's really bringing forward the, hey, blueprint, and we want people on the tools and stuff. But I guess what's next for them is they're really, the next natural step for them would be to bring out some sandbox that you're able to make changes in, or you're able to set, I guess, mock budgets live, because then it's all good and well for you to be messing around in Facebook with smaller budgets. But I guess when you get to there's a tipping point there when you start spending a significant more amount of money, things gather way more momentum. And it's harder to make changes sometimes, or the changes you do make are a lot more significant. So I think if there was a sandbox where you could say, hey, I want to spend $10,000 a day of fake money in this fake marketplace, then I understand what's the impact of that versus spending $100 a day.
Yeah, I think it's such a genius idea. If you're listening, Facebook, for whatever reason, give us a shout. We want in. You heard it here first. I also want to know a little bit around, obviously we spoke heavily around Facebook and Instagram, which is Meta, whatever it's called now.
Sure.
What about Pinterest? What about TikTok? What about, what's that other one called? Discord. Do you play in any of those spaces as well? And where do you see the industry really going for people that are up and coming and need to have these extra skill sets because they are such big players in our social media world?
Yeah, I think TikTok is fantastic. I love it as an advertising platform. It's obviously in its earlier stages. Like there's, teething issues because, it's quite new. There's things that certainly could be improved, and they are improving it from kind of like a ease of use and a quality of life. But as an advertising platform as a whole, it's great. I really enjoy using it. Pinterest has seen a surge recently. People are really jumping onto the platform and seeing the quality in it. But yeah, I think since TikTok is still very much in its early stages, if someone is listening to this and they really want to get into e-commerce, I think the next thing they really need to concentrate on is TikTok. If you're able to really break through TikTok and really, drive results on that platform, I think that's such an important kind of bit of skill that you're able to learn.
Yeah. And even from a content creation point of view, not just that paid element, is that correct?
Yeah, I think kind of even looking broader towards that, I think, as I was talking before about being, I guess, creative focused, I think the next kind of, role that will exist, in my opinion, within the businesses is, I guess, the content creator / kind of paid ad specialist. Yeah. I think traditionally, a lot of businesses at scale would use agencies, right?
Or one or the other. They'll split them all into two.
100%. Or they'll use agencies, and obviously agencies are large, and it's no fault of the agency. They've got so many clients to deal with at any one time, and that's totally fair. But I think as e-commerce is becoming more and more, I guess, widespread and accepted in that respect, I suppose, I think businesses understand they need to be a lot more nimble, and they don't really behave in the same way as traditional marketing. So anything you do in a macro level makes, significant changes as it grows and grows and grows. So I think once people start working within e-commerce businesses more, they'll understand the impact of that content creator / paid ad specialist. It's such like a weird niche role, but I think if you're really good on the tools, really good behind the camera, and you're able to create that content that's specific for e-commerce that does sell, and you're able to have an understanding of the paid ads platform, I think you're legitimately like a unicorn.
Yeah, we love a good unicorn here. I love that you kind of described of like what the future could hold. Is there any other pockets of opportunity that you see for whether they're right now in their career, they're like, hey, I want to maybe make a move to e-commerce, or I want to make a move to paid advertising? What are the opportunities that you're seeing that people could get ahead of the curve?
I think just starting to be very aware of a lot of these businesses are going to be starting hiring internally for these e-commerce roles. So I think potentially, even if you're at a business and they're starting to explore e-commerce possibilities or thinking about, bringing that in-house, I think the easiest way for there is to upskill as quick as possible and offer that as your next progression within the business. Because I feel like, if you're already bought into the culture of business and they really understand the way you work and they're happy with you, I think it's super easy to kind of obviously, move to a new role within the business. And I think if you're presenting the skills that they're looking for even before they're looking for, I think that's a really good, test of initiative for that person.
Yeah, internal growth is so important. And I think as a recruiter, I am always looking for great candidates. And one of the signs of a great candidate is, have you done internal progression? And does a company want to invest in your value? So I think that's a really great understanding, is don't look for those manager positions. Start with the executives, start with being a coordinator, and yes, eat some dirt for a year. And really, I guess from there, show your worth, and internally you will progress. Is that kind of the advice you're giving?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we're almost at half an hour. I can't believe we've already been speaking for so long. I could talk to you all day, but I'm also conscious of everyone's time. Is there anything that you see currently happening in the market, or advice that you would give to your younger self, or anything we haven't discussed today that you have always dreamt of sharing on a series like this?
Of course. I mean, I think the biggest piece of advice that I wish I knew even a year ago, or even 2 years ago, was just say yes more often. There's been so many cases where, looking back on it now, someone's even internally suggested a creative idea or advertising idea or whatever it may be. And at the time, I might have said, no, look, it's probably not the right idea. It's probably not good, or whatever personal bias I had a personal bias against it, right? Looking back on it now, if I said yes just a little bit more often, chances are 3 or 4 months down the track, I would have said yes to that anyway. And it probably would have killed it. So if I said yes to it ages ago, I would have been 3 or 4 steps ahead of it already, and we would have built a campaign on it. So, and that kind of applies itself to anything. If someone wants to chat to you about something externally, wants to grab a coffee, talk to you about marketing and advertising, say yes. Just say yes to more things. And I really wish I kind of took that advice more early on in my career.
Well, it's probably the reason why you said yes to jumping on this video series with me. Is that right?
Of course. And yeah, and like if you reach out to people who are genuinely excited about advertising, like if someone reached out to me and asked for advice, I'm more than happy to talk about it, because I genuinely love advertising. So if you reach out to these people on LinkedIn, don't be afraid of these people. It seems daunting at first, but they'd probably be really happy to kind of just spend 20 minutes, 15 minutes with you and just answering any questions you might have.
Yeah. And on that note, I would kind of like close that loop. Please don't go like spam Emilio and ask him for hundreds of copies. He does have a job at the end of the day, but maybe bring something to the table as well. I'm a big fan of how can you equally support energy for energy. So what value can you bring Emilio? What value can you bring the head of marketing at whatever company that you're looking to get into? Is always equal energy. Value share is what I love to call it.
It's great. I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, on that note, really thank you so much for jumping on this video series on how you built your e-commerce career. You are going places. I'm so excited to continue watching your journey. Where can people find you if they want to find you? I know that's a weird thing to say. I feel like people say it on podcast episodes, so I'm organically saying it on this.
Realistically, like, as more as I'm on social media for work, I hardly touch it. So I think the best place to reach me is probably LinkedIn.
LinkedIn it is. I will add his LinkedIn here somewhere. I'm not sure where you'll find that, but he will be accessible. He has a weird name like me, very easy to find on social platforms, which is always good. But Emilio, thank you so much for sharing your time, your value, and all those crazy insights to how someone would build their e-commerce career. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.